Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of B is for Build. We're here working on the pontoon yacht. This last winter my main boat sunk and I didn't know if I'd be able to bring it back. So I got on my computer and I started designing, and I designed this thing. It's a dream of a budget boat build that would do everything that I wanted. 44 foot long, 12 foot wide, double-decker pontoon boat with an in-floor hot tub in the front. Over the last 2 months we've been building to make that more of a reality. We've got a pontoon boat, it's got 4 pontoons, it's got a hot tub in the front, it's got a second level built on, it's got some engines slapped on the back, and in the last episode we got the flooring done. In today's episode we get to move on to something that's really fun for me because it involves a lot of building and a lot of design, which is the swim deck. The swim deck sets the back for the entire boat and how it's all going to work, but then that also affects everything that stacks in front of it, like the engine compartments and the barbecue and the cooler. So I had this boat all designed out and I thought I was pretty slick, lots of different ideas, and then once we got these engines in here I realized the design involved stairs running right through these bad boys right here, and when they need to turn, well, that was going to cut off the room for the stairs. Here's my original design for the back of the boat. Brown swim deck. This engine box, and they covered the engines. They lift up like that, like burp. And then that's the cooler box that has a fridge built into it and an ice chest, and that's the barbecue box that has cooking built into it. The problem was I put these nice stairs right here, right in the middle of the screen right here, and 2 issues with that. There's no support right here because that's floating over the water. So not a good place to put stairs where there is no support. But also, like I said, stairs would smash into the engine. Those are like 18 inches wide. And by my measurement, we ain't got 18 inches of width in between the engines. So that kicked off a really fun weekend redesign. How could I do what I wanted to do? So I figured it out. I did a ton of 3D modeling. I'll show you some of it here on the screen in extreme time lapse because it was hours and hours and hours of pretty boring stuff. But basically, Cliff Notes is if we start the stairs right here at the end of the engines, like horizontally, like where the engines end, and then we walk them out and down, we're there. Doesn't solve the problem of the middle of the stairs are floating far away from any supports. I didn't like that, but with enough like cross bracing and tricky stuff, I'm sure I could make it strong enough. But I left one really big problem. Back into our 3D model here, I'll show you the big problem with the swim deck. When the swim deck would be lowered to be in the water where it needs to be, it leaves this huge gap that most people can't climb up. It would be very, very uncomfortable for the swimmers to be able to get back into the boat. It's just like a 30-inch, maybe not 30, 25-inch tall gap. No good. So I kept designing, and I found something online that looked like this, and it incorporates a ramp into the swim deck. So when it's lower, it ramps into the bottom stair. Problem solved, right? Second problem. I'd always imagined this swim deck being hydraulically assisted, lifted up and down, but there's not enough space to put the hinging and the hydraulics in here to make that work on my boat. I think if I had another boat or I was willing to let the swim deck push out farther away from the back of the boat, I could do it. But also, as I'm using my other boat a lot, I'm starting to be a little bit more on the side of less fancy stuff, more manual stuff, less things that could break, less things to go wrong. So, imagine you have a giant engine box here and then the swim deck is down. You actually have no way of moving the swim deck because you're blocked by the engine box. So this engine box right here is 30 inches tall, and then you've got like a 20-inch gap where the swim deck has gone down, and you would need to grab the swim deck and be able to move it back up. And yeah, to be quite frank, there's I don't know anybody with a 56-inch arm. But also it brought up another really good point to myself is these engine boxes are supposed to be able to be moved, which I'll show you, and lifted like this. But where are you going to stand to do that? You know, where are you going to get on there? You going to grab it from right here in the back maybe if you're sitting on the swim deck? Or are you going to try and do it from on the stairs right under your feet? Just wasn't going to work. So I was just running into a lot of problems of reality. Like, looks good here on the computer, but reality-wise, total pain. So I fired up every single little neuron left in this old noggin and got to designing, and I came up with something that I actually think is going to be very functional. It's going to work really, really well. And it's going to be more comfortable all around, and that's this design right here. The only downside of it is that we're making a few things smaller. Primarily the engine box is smaller, and if we're going to do that, we need to make sure that we can fit enough fuel on board, that we can fit our batteries on board, and anything that needs to be in the engine compartment needs to have a space. So I've got a 3D model, I've got a conceptualized design down, but short of 3D scanning these engines, which take more time than I wanted to spend. All I could do was model out these boxes that are the exact full dimensions, but they're not really showing us exact reality. So we need to test everything out in exact reality, and that's what Kyle and I are about to do right now. We are gonna go ahead and look at this model that I've designed, look at this idea, look at this concept, and start playing around with it in real life and say, okay, well, if the engines are limited here, they can only tilt this far, they can only swivel this far. Are we gonna run into any problems? Do we have enough materials to do this? All of these things, are we gonna be able to fit our fuel tanks? We're gonna test out all those things real quick, and then if we get the green light, we can continue on. That's actually really fun. It's like a engineering for dummies double check. We're just proofing our workout. So what we're testing here is material thicknesses. How thick of do we want to go with 1/4 inch thick 2x2 railings, or do we want to go with 1/8 inch thick? How thick a skinning do we want to go with? All those things. And then we are testing tolerances on our game plan. It looks like with the new smaller engine box design idea, there's a bunch of benefits to it. Obviously going to be easier to maneuver as far as lifting the box itself. But then storing everything inside it is going to be tricky, but it looks like it's going to be doable. It just looks like our tolerance between the engine at full tilt and our fuel cell could be very close. But I don't see a reason why that would be dangerous at all. So I think that's totally fine. Next step, we need an absolute ton of aluminum. To Metal Supermarkets we go. Back from Metal Supermarkets. That was a huge order. We got a lot of stuff on the way. We were able to immediately grab a few things to get us started. So let's get started. Let me show you what we're gonna build first. These green things right here are steps to walk down onto the swim deck when it's down, so you can walk between the boat back and forth. That's how I solved that problem. And then they also hold these receivers for the swim deck to slot into. So there's 16 different receivers, 4 on each side of each set of the steps. Probably overkill, but let's ignore that. So we have all the material to build all this stuff on both sides. It's pretty simple translation over to here. The only thing is that in my model, this is flat, and in the real world, this has a bulge to it. So we're gonna go ahead and template out the curve here. Both our stair sets are 15.5 inches wide. So we'll template out the curve at 15.5 inches wide on center of the pontoon. We'll transfer that curve over to the 4 pieces of the sides of the steps, we'll call it, and then we'll cut that out. And then once we have that cut out, we should be in a good place to start welding. The side pieces for the stairs ended up looking something like this. And we just took a little bit of cardboard and put it up against the side here. We marked out our lines vertically using a big bubble level. And then took a piece of cardboard just flat here, and then I took a little spacer and then just ran the marker with the spacer from top to bottom. And that allowed us to get a rough shape of the pontoon, this bulge right here. And then we were able to just marker that out onto the metal, transfer it from the cardboard onto the metal, and then cut it out, and it's looking pretty good. So what I'm gonna do is flip the welder over to the spool gun so I can weld aluminum, and I'll start getting these, and then the big face that will face us like this, tacked together, so it'll just kind of be like a big L shape. And while I do that, Kyle's gonna work on getting the bottom pieces shaped out, and that's the flat bottom piece that'll go in here. We're gonna have to cut these off, and it's a flat bottom piece that goes in here and contours to the bottom of the pontoon as well. So I decided to do like finished edges on the outside of the top of the step, and then the bottom of the step we let just be a little uglier because no one's ever gonna see them. They're fully welded out inside the box. I managed to get the spool gun pretty dialed in and happy with those welds. Should be waterproof. Doesn't really matter because these things aren't gonna be submerged. So if it's like 99.9% waterproof and the back of the boat does a little dunk action, it'll add flotation, which is always a bonus. So we've got these that get welded on to these. This is the bottom piece for these. Okay, so Kyle's got that thing there. It kind of goes on there roughly like that. And then this piece hugs the bottom of the pontoon and will, you know, get attached in there, something like that. And then the stairs that we just built land right in the middle of that. Anyways, it'll be something like this, and then this is, you know, step one that you would step on, and then the next step would be onto the deck, and then underneath this, when it's swim time, the swim deck mounts underneath this. When it's not swim time, it goes on top of it. A little hard to explain when we're balancing everything with our hands. Anyways, you're gonna see it in a couple seconds when we get it on the pontoon. So I'm gonna go ahead and start probably just tack welding everything up, get it all in position, the main stair box on the back of the pontoon, and then the stair step in there as well. There you go, now you can see it more take shape. So this is one that's welded out but not cleaned up. So we're gonna blend that edge, blend that lower edge right there, and then round all our corners over there in case anybody's like swimming and hits a corner with their leg or something like that. We don't want them to be razor sharp. I'm very happy with how the spool gun's running. I think that's good enough. That's definitely good enough. It's a strong, solid weld. Again, our water line is right here, like right about here, give or take. So I'm not too worried about waterproofness on this thing. I'm not even really gonna fuss with it because it would only gain us about, if you imagine maybe that's 2 gallons of water, that's like 16 pounds of flotation. It's not really enough to fuss over. I'm pretty much assuming that that's gonna fill up with water over time. So Kyle's gonna work on sanding that one up and getting it all cleaned up while I work on welding this one out. It's just tacked in place right now. We're gonna get it all the way welded out. Our pontoon stairs are done. I'm very, very proud with how these came out. I'm very happy with the welding and the look of them and how we finished them out. They're nice and we got kind of soft rounded edges that aren't gonna hurt anybody. I mean, well, if you run your shit into this, it's, you know, it's solid aluminum, but you know what I mean. And I'm just really happy with how these came out. I think it was, I guess, just a little bit better than my expectation, which is wonderful. So now that those are done, we should start working on building the actual swim deck. So the swim deck has receivers that come off and they'll go into here. So we're gonna be welding a ton of stuff to the sides of these and everything like that. But I think first we should get the swim deck built out. Now it is the next day, so we do have our shipment of aluminum from Metal Supermarkets. And here's what I decided on doing. We're doing 1/4 inch thick wall tube running down the center with 1/8 inch thick wall tubes running on the outside, and then there's going to be stuff to stiffen them in between. The reason being is the thinner the wall thickness, the lighter I'm going to be able to get this. This basically weighs twice as much as that one, as you might expect, because the wall is twice as thick. So I want to keep the weight down as much as possible because this is a manual swim deck where we're going to be lifting it ourselves up and lowering it down, so I don't want it to be impossible to lift. So that's what we're going with. We're going to try 1/8 wall on the outside, 1/4 inch on the inside, and basically just hope it does not bend and break on us. I've done simulations with my little piece of wood over there, and I think it's going to be just fine. Got something that looks like a rectangle. This is the rectangle that is the swim deck. There will be a lot more supports and a lot of attachment points coming in, but that is the rectangle wrapped up. While Kyle was cutting everything for that, I was working on this other thing. Done. I'm gonna go ahead and build off the back of this deck, basically expansion. So right now our deck runs through here and ends right here where you see this gray end. We need to make it look kind of like this side over here, excuse the glare, this side over here. And the way that we do that is we're gonna run two 52 inchers down here, and then we have a 1/4 inch thick piece of square tube that runs the back. And then we have this optional bracing method that if we need it, I'm gonna integrate it, but I'm not sure if we are gonna need it, because that I might wait to see once we have the engine boxes on there to see if we actually need that bracing or not. But it's a design. But anyways, for right now, we're gonna get the permanent backing tube back there. And what you kind of can't see in the model is that it comes off of here and it actually ties into this edge right here, which will make this all even stronger. Got that nailed. So these two extensions come off from that main back bar right there coming out, and that's gonna allow us to lay decking down all the way out here. Probably gonna do a little bit of a curved entry over here, and then we're gonna do some decking across there. So decking out here for footpath, and then the engine compartment door is gonna land on it. And then this is the main rear bar. Very, very strong, sturdy 1/4 inch wall coming back here. And back to the same thing on the other side. Now this is extremely strong in the middle. I had thought about doing this whole bracing thing, and I really don't think it's necessary. At this point, definitely not necessary. So I may change my mind later, but for now, that's that. And I'm really happy with that. So now we're back on to how to attach the swim deck to the boat. This is the design for the swim deck, and you can see there's these like 4 arms that stick out from it. There's 4 on each side, and they're all the same. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is probably move into cardboard aided design and just do a little work with, I don't know, cardboard or wood or something that's easy to work with quickly, and try and figure out these angles the best we can and get a really good template. Because once we get one of these templated out, then we can make all 4 of them and it'll go really fast. And then as you've seen, the receivers go over here on the stairs. So we'll get those receivers in and we can design those after we have all of our legs kind of made out. And probably at least tacked into the frame of the swim deck. We got our pieces, we transferred them over to cardboard. That worked really, really well, and we like the way that they look. So then we transferred cardboard over to aluminum, and now we are ready to start looking at the swim deck against the back of the boat. So we've put some straight edges kind of coming off of the back at parallel, and that's gonna kind of just hold this structure up in the air a little bit. And we're probably gonna get the jack and stack a bunch of stuff over it so we can make slight changes to the levelness of it. Levigality of it. And yeah, we got to get it mocked up and floating in the air, so then we can start looking at putting some of these guys and the receivers on the boat. Sure you guys have noticed we're using a lot of aluminum in today's episode. Running back and forth to Metal Supermarkets, the convenience store for metal. They have partnered with us on this boat build, so all this aluminum that you see here was provided to us by Metal Supermarkets. And they wanted us to let you know about a contest that they're doing. It's awesome, it's free to enter. It's called the Metal My Way contest, and anybody can submit their metal made projects. There's a bunch of different categories, and each category has a prize. I'll put all the categories right here on the screen. It's a ton of different areas. Each category has its own winner, and each of those winners will get this awesome welder right here. And then there's also a grand prize of a really nice benchtop bandsaw. So the contest started August 1st, which means it's already running, and it goes through August 31st. So you got some time to get in there. And remember, if you need some metal to wrap up your project for the Metal My Way contest, make sure you head over to Metal Supermarkets. They have awesome staff, awesome customer service, very knowledgeable. They can source hard to find metals. They do not charge per cut. It's great. So go to metalmyway.com for the contest. Go to metalsupermarkets.com for the metal. Find a location near you. They're all over the place and they're awesome. Both of those links are gonna be in the description. Let's get back to it. Well, it was a really good theory, but had a slight mistake. So each one of these tubes comes off of the swim deck and is supposed to go into its receiver, and there's just not enough wiggle room on the receiver. So within mistake level tolerances and things being slightly off, either this way to this way or this way to this way or this way to this way, it tightens things up and it just doesn't want to allow the swim deck to go in and out. So we ran out to Metal Supermarkets. We got some larger receiver tubing that is going to give us a little bit more room for play to get in and out of there. We're going to cut those up and we're going to try this again. Voila! We learned from our first mistakes, made several little changes, and then obviously bigger receivers, and now this is very much kind of what I expected it to be, the experience of pulling it out to slot it out and slot it back in. So we've got the outside arms and the outside receivers done. There's inside receivers, lower, inside receivers, upper, and then lower outside receivers that still have to be done. So it's like a lot more stuff. We don't have quite the materials right now for that, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next one, which is going to be the inside lower. So these are at a very, we built the stairs to be level with the pontoons, and for some reason they're slightly cocked in and out. So you do the extremes. You do the extremes on the outside, and then we're going to do the extremes on the inside, which happens to be the inside lower. So we're going to go ahead and make two more arms, sections like this. One that'll go here and one that'll go there. And then we've got receivers ready that'll go down there. So we'll get we've got our high version mocked up right now, and then we'll get our low version mocked up right now. We've got the lower insides done. We're gonna go ahead and, while it's on the low mode, we're gonna go ahead and get the lower outside receivers done, and then we'll lift it up and get the inside upper receivers done. And then it's just time for a ton of weld out, but we'll basically have the structural part of it all done. So we're gonna get these all wrapped up real quick so I can start welding. We've got all the receivers all welded in on both sides, 16 receivers all welded into the steps, and the swim deck, I'm happy to say, has all 4 arms on it now, and they all fit into the receivers with the 8 different slotting things. It's a lot going on here. It's a lot. I thought this was gonna take us 2, maybe 2.5 days, and we're on day 4.5. That's not a good sign for us getting this boat. So here's my only worry, is obviously I don't really care too much about the boating season and the boating weather. I want to build the best boat that we can, but we do have SEMA obligations like we do every year. We've got to have our SEMA build plenty of time and have it frickin' dialed, because it's going in a really cool booth this year, which means that we got to get this thing back on pace, and I don't know how I'm going to do that. I might have to do like my own like pre-SEMA push on the boat before SEMA or something. I'm just gonna move in, I'm gonna live on the boat and just work on it. Anyways, We're sadly falling behind schedule, but this swim deck is turning out awesome. So let me show you how we're gonna finish it out. Kyle cut some support pieces right there. Those are gonna get welded in, one for each set of the legs. And then I've got a little bit of weld left to do on the inside joins of these guys right here. And that'll finish out the, I don't know, the main part. Now then there's a top skin that goes on here of aluminum. There's supports that go on here that we'll have to do before the top skin. And then it gets filled with foam, and then there's a bottom skin, but unfortunately, metal supermarkets, although they are super great, forgot to send us, or forgot to give us the metal for the bottom skin. It didn't come in our order. So when we get that, in the next episode, we'll be able to finish it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish the welding on this piece. Kyle will start cutting the support pieces that are gonna run in through here. The reason that we have to run supports horizontally here is that on this side, all three of these bars are tied together and kept level by the legs of it, or whatever you want to call those things. But over here, once you get to the middle, if you step on like just this bar, it'll bend down and you won't use the force of this bar. So you want to have the force of everything. And to do that, we're just going to run some supports running through here, and it'll tie it all together and make it feel a lot more sturdy and strong, which we are doing a very good job of threading the needle of being not too heavy to lift, but also strong enough to have like a lot of people be able to be on here, and I'm not worried about it breaking. So that's pretty cool. All right, one more big session of cutting and welding, and then we'll get this thing on the boat. So cool. It's something so simple, but it took a long time to make it. I'm so happy about it. So you saw us, Kyle and I, we're both on there jumping around. There's absolutely no flex with us both even standing in the middle, which means maybe we overbuilt it a tad, but everything's good as long as it's under the weight limit. Now, here's another thing. I mentioned that we didn't have our bottom metal. I ordered the top metal wrong. Luckily, it was this piece that's wrong. It's like 3 inches shy. So we were gonna finish out the top, but obviously this gap is no good. So we'll keep the big piece and we'll reorder the small piece. We'll wrap these things up on Monday. Basically that gets riveted on the top, angle iron goes around it, foam goes under the bottom, and then a skin goes underneath that, and then angle iron goes around that. And when I say iron, I mean angled aluminum. What that does, all that foam and then the fact that all the rails in there and the main deck are all closed in, that gives this thing actually 300 pounds of flotation because of the amount of water that it disperses. The buoyancy of this is 300 pounds, so it won't sink if it falls into the water. I know it kind of sounds crazy, but yes, it would not sink, which is great. Now, the big test is, let's pretend the boat's on the water. So when the boat is on the water, this thing would be basically submerged is the game plan. Like it should be right there at the water line, if not submerged. People would be on the boat, not in the water, and it's time to bring the swim deck up. Kyle and I are going to emulate this for you and see if it's at all possible with 2 men to see if we can, I think the game plan would be to lay on the floor right here, grab this, I don't know, maybe lay, maybe not, grab this, slide it out, pull it up, put it back in. This is what we're gonna test right now. Stretch it out, Kyle. I lifted this thing up, my guesstimate is that it weighs about 75 pounds right now. That's my guess. So this should be pretty easy, but let's see if we can do it kind of gracefully or not. Wait just a second. So I think we're lightly on this. It's weird lift, but. See, if I put it on hydraulics, we wouldn't get to have all this fun, but also couldn't have steps right here. All right, going for it. Oh my God! I don't like this. That's not gonna work. It's too much to hold it way out here. We have to think of a different strategy. Cool, we got the swim deck up. It's going great. So graceful. Okay, it's not that heavy, it's just radically awkward is the problem. Didn't help that we had the aluminum falling off because we tried to tilt it up.
If we have people plan to be up here, we find a way for them to support some weight.
We put straps on it. Well, now I'm wondering, like, what if you make the people that are in the water put the swim deck back up? right? Like how much can a human lift while they're in water before they like sink all the way down? We're gonna put straps on this thing. So if you're in the water, really easy to pull it out. If it's up, it's really easy to put it in the water because it'll float on the water and then you'll just kind of maneuver it in there. The problem is when it's low, it's going high, right? So if we put straps, if we don't want to rely on swimmers to help us out, I think if we put straps on the front side and the back side that can be grabbed by people up top, we can guide it in there. So let's see if we can emulate that real quick. I've come too far to admit this is a dumb idea. I think straps is gonna do it. So okay, let's consider this. We've been swimming, so we're gonna start with this thing. Like what I would do since it floats is I would do the lay down method and then I would just chuck it in the water. So Kyle and I are gonna be emulating just lifting it off the water with our newly invented straps and sliding it back into the boat. Okay, we're coming out of the water. I'm gonna get my toesies out. You good? It's pretty easy to steer. Haha! Straps. That was actually really easy.
That was much better.
Like weight-wise, that was 10 times less sketchy. Not hard on the back or the flanks. That was very manageable. Okay, so in the next episode, we install straps. Also wanted to show you guys the foam that we got that's gonna go on here to give a little cushion for the feet. It's that, you know, faux teak boating foam stuff that's adhesive on one side. And it is very, very rolly right now. Certainly wants to curl up. So we're gonna let this, you know, kind of flex itself back out over the weekend. And then hopefully on Monday we can get this on here. And that should look really nice. I think that'll be a nice finish. One other thing I've been thinking about is there's a bar that now is gonna go from there all the way down to here. So then if you had a bar for one hand and say you were like in the water, halfway in the water, and then you had some sort of a foothold anywhere down here, that'd make it really easy to lift out and over too. So I wanted to put a foothold down here regardless for safety's sake, basically, so we have like a permanent ladder on each side if anybody fell out of the boat or wanted to get in and out of the boat, out of the water really quickly. I wanted to put that there anyway. So I'm gonna think about, and you guys let me know in the comments if you see opportunity of how to just engineer something that'll all kind of work together and coalesce. So maybe there's more than one way with straps to get the swim deck in and out of the water. It's not really so much a weight issue as it's just an awkwardness issue. But with the straps, it's actually super easy. Thanks for joining us for another week of boat progress. Got just a couple weeks left, one way or another. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future episodes. If you want any merch, head over to bsforbuild.com. We got all sorts of great stuff there. My favorite shirt is the one that just says, I make bad decisions. See you guys on the next one. Peace!